to look for small talk advice, I
Mm.
wouldn't initially go straight to Aristotle,
Mm.
but
Mm.
he had a good take in that we shouldn't ask what people do for work, and we should instead ask what they do in their leisure time.
Mm.
Why was that?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? That's the leisure one, isn't it, dude? It goes back to what we said earlier about defining yourself as a Homo economicus. I think Aristotle agreed that the meaning of life is not to be found in making money for the current world order. And I think that's fairly uncontroversial as an idea. And I think that when we view ourselves as an economic unit to add digits to the current world order, it kind of, it's unhappy. You feel existentially lost. And I think Aristotle's point is actually we should define people by leisure more, and because leisure is gives them more pleasure, and it's also tied into with virtue. And I mentioned earlier that when Aristotle talks about leisure, he doesn't talk about playing PlayStation or watching Netflix. He talks about learning, philosophizing, doing stuff you should do at a traditional classical school, which is basically exercise, talking with your friends, and studying. And I think that is more interesting. I think also it's just a better conversation, isn't it? If you ask someone what they do for leisure, I think they light up. You see that their body language changes, they shift, their facial expression will change, and it's a better conversation. And also, I wrote an article about this as well, that there's often the case that when someone asks you about what you do for a living, not always the case, I have to say this, because sometimes it's just small talk and people need questions. Often it's the case where it's a kind of status play, isn't it? It's a kind of hierarchical positioning. What do you do? Can I talk to you? Should I talk to this person? Or how should I patronize you? Or should I defer to you? It's kind of like a place, Japanese, for example, the language is very status graded. Like you have different words for those who you deem to be above you, and different words for those you deem to be below you professionally. And I feel as though that's a kind of human element to that when we first introduce ourselves to somebody, I want to know where we are in the pecking order. And so when I ask you, who are you and what do you do? We're trying to establish, what should I talk about with you? How should I talk about? And should I be, different or not? Actually,
What do you say when you introduce yourself?
I say hi. Who are you? And this is I've got to say that I don't talk the talk in that sense, because small talk is important, at least for the first 5 minutes, because this is it's a kind of it's a dance, it's a negotiation. You're working out what the person is like and what to do next. I have to say I don't particularly enjoy small talk, so there'll come a point that after the small talk's exhausted, I will try to either move it on to something a bit more important, or I'll move to someone else. I, as a general rule, try to be quite honest as much as possible. I'm very frank about my own life, and I like to ask quite honest questions about people. Obviously, I'm not asking about their showering habits, but I like to ask about people's relationships. I like to ask about people's thoughts about morality and about politics and about their childhood and their family and stuff which I think some people find uncomfortably frank. And there have been a few times where people have taken objection to the fact I've been uncomfortably frank, but I often think that as a cost-benefit analysis, I would rather a few people be a little bit uncomfortable than live my life full of dull conversations.